So anyway, there was this Dalai Lama in Tibet, the holiest of holy men, who, unlike previous Dalai Lamas, he was a little bit of a lush. He liked to dabble in the ladies and the Himalayan hooch. And unlike previous Dalai Lamas, he wasn't particularly discreet about it, which dismayed many of his followers, the lesser Lamanites, who were a little bit peeved because they didn't think it was good PR for holiness. So they decided to meet with him on the roof of his temple, confront him with his indiscretions and urge him in future to be a little more Lama-like, do a little less Dalian-like. And he listened very respectfully to what they had to say. Then when they'd finished, he very gracefully uplifted his orange bodice, pulled out his one-eyed jacket yak and peed off the top of the roof. And it was one of these Tibetan terraced affairs, split-level, multi-layer, geometrically diminishing from bottom to top. So his pee bounced off the top level, then down onto the next level, and so on, so on, so on, all the way to the ground. But when it hit the ground, it didn't just splish and splatter like normal pee would. It seemed to smile, actually, and it bounced right back up onto the lowest level, then up onto the next level, and so on and so on. Rigorously retraced its downward stream, till finally it retracted itself delightedly back into its master's enlightened ding-dong. And he very graciously tucked himself up, turned and bowed politely to his followers, and said in a voice you could cut with a Tibetan tarot card, "My friends, when you too can do what I just did, then you may advise me how I should live." Fair enough. So anyway, after that, his PR rating amongst the vulgar populace jumped at least 10 points. And according to Tibetan legend, he became one of the most beloved Dalais in the history of Lamas, certainly the most entertaining, because he demonstrated beyond the shadow of Mount Everest that there's more than one way to retain your bodily fluids, which is a big part of what being holy and mysterious is all about in any language, retaining your bodily fluids, not wasting your God-given spark plug fuel, which can not only motorize an insight into divinity, can actually in fact effect a tete-a-tete tutorial with the Godhead, so you too can learn how to live forever, which is the ultimate power goal of all mysticism, transcending death, which is basically just the chronic terminal exhaustion of your prenatal vitality juices. And you either believe it or you don't. But also, a not insignificant aspect of what this Dalai Lama had demonstrated was that holiness can be fun. It can be fun being holy. That the more advanced the body is disciplined by the spirit, the more fun you can have with it. And this was a concept that never crossed my Church of England consciousness. I mean, the mere thought the local vicar hoisting his surplice, pulling out his personal sacrament and peeing all over the baptistry would be enough to get us both disbarred from humanity for the rest of our natural perversity. Even if he was ready, willing and able to retract himself in his rectory or vacuum himself up in his vestry, the mere possibility he might expose his private parties in public would be sufficient grounds to instantly banish him into layman limbo. That he might actually express his bladder all over the house of God would undoubtedly damn him to be perpetually pricked in rigor mortis. The imagination boggles what would happen if one Holy Communion, the Reverend Nat Lofthouse, popped up in a pulpit, proffering suggestive practices to his congregation, how they might achieve immortality, or at least supernatural suction, by monitoring their farts, by being very, very careful when breaking wind, that it is in fact the noxious gases from decomposing food, and not just careless exhaustion of their prenatal vitality. Especially if you've already managed to master your nocturnal emissions and other free-floating ejaculatory whimsies, that newly sustained cementing power will undoubtedly be seeking other outlets into the wasteful world, like through your arsehole. Farting is not a fatuous matter. Don't just fart, for fuck's sake. If you feel a storm brewing, and you know that it's not just because you ate beans baked up with unripe bananas and rotten oranges, here's what you do. You take the middle finger of your right hand and you place it in the center of your left palm. This is your dragon center. Then you take the middle finger of your left hand and you place it in the center of your right palm. And this is your tiger center. Then you adopt the tantric pose. Elevate the tongue to the top of the palate. Contract your anus. Then take precisely 7 deep breaths. This will suck the juice right up into your head, down past your nose, and into your mouth as saliva, which is essentially seminal throat fluid. So don't spit it out, swallow it, pass it into your belly, and your juice will have become even juicier. Of course, then the cycle begins all over again. The struggle not to fart when you don't really need to fart, or to fuck when you might be more creatively challenged building a pagoda, or whatever it is you need to worship that unity you're striving to attain parity with by becoming utterly en rapport with your natural body. Of course, if you practice this often enough, you become so juiced up and continental you'll have no choice but to become a mystic. In which case, you want to take it one step further, really start fucking with your head. Internal copulation, they call it, shooting that anti-shit directly up the spinal freeway. Bypassing the cerebra, so you're not just jerking your brain around, right up into the psyche, sending out feelers to the 1,000-petal lotus floating just above your head, till finally you may drink the nectar from the moon, with the aid of a government grant or a donation from the Salvation Army, and the loan of a friend's apartment, ideally situated halfway up a Himalayan mountain, well away from graveyards, and remodelled over the ruins of an ancient Taoist temple, so all the bad energies have already been dealt with. Then you gather up your utensils, a round wooden bum stopper wrapped in cotton, and a clothespin for your nose. And then you arrange with that same friend to be available at opportune moments to pinch your coccyx to keep your freeway free. And now you're ready to go for broke, so you adopt the tantric pose, elevate the tongue to the top of your palate. And you start juicing up to the max by wiggling your nose, wiggling your ears, jiggling your mind, wriggling your tongue and jiggling your penis, which by now is so perfectly practiced, it's permanently indisposed as an exit point. And what with your asshole soundly plugged up and your spinal ready to be tapped in time, that procreative urge will shoot up into your tantric temple like there's no tomorrow, like there's no yesterday, like there's no anything but what there already is now. Forever your crown will light up. You'll start to fixate on a golden orb in your mind's eye. The back of your head will start to shake. A dragon will start humming old Peter, Paul and Mary tunes in your left ear. Tigger the tiger will start roaring in your right ear. Your belly will go into severely hot salsa shock and your penis will shrivel up. And this is the signal you have to peg your nose so you don't just blow it all out as snot. And you're now hermetically sealed, so you roll your eyeballs 36 times from left to right, 24 times from right to left, and that juice will plummet into your lower abdomen with the gravitational force of a lead weight drop from the Eiffel Tower, and you'll now be grounded for immortality. And you'll be able to choose just who or whatever you want to be on any particular day in eternity. You're a supernaturally charged time machine power pack. You're a fucking Vestal Virgin, man, with a radiance so tangible you can bottle it. Or prepare it into pills and pass it round amongst your friends, which is what one ancient Chinese mystic actually did. And the time came when he decided he was ready to experiment in earnest, so he invited his dog and 3 disciples up a Himalayan mountain. And he gave the first pill to the dog, who dropped down stone dead. And the disciples suggested, well, maybe this pill needed a little more work, but the ancient wise guy insisted he would never do unto his dog what he wouldn't do unto himself. And besides, he would rather die now than live later in unperpetual mortality. So he took a pill and he dropped down stone dead. And the faithful disciple decided, well, where my master goes, then I must follow. So he took a pill and he dropped down stone dead. And the other 2 disciples said, well, fuck this for a dose of elixir. We came here to live forever, not commit suicide. So they went off to rent a couple of coffins. Of course, as soon as they disappeared, the old guy revived himself, because it had just been a trick to separate the true believers from the ye of little faith. The dog revived, the faithful disciple revived, and the old guy took the real pills out of his other pocket, passed them around, and they all lived happily forever after. But not before he'd written a letter to those 2 undisciplined fuck-ups saying, well, you fucked up right good and proper, eh? Have a good death, chicken livers. Because these age-old intentional farters have a definite way with wheat and chaff. So anyway, if you're ever walking up a Himalayan mountain and you see an ancient Chinese mystic drop down stone dead, don't take anything for granted. Check his pockets. Hide behind a bush for 2 weeks, because you never know. This guy might be onto something that we mere mortals can only dream about on television.